Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I'm your host, Jeff Hootselle with AuditMax. As you guys know, Tech Talk is a show where we talk to IT leaders from across the country that are working for some really dynamic organizations and doing some amazing stuff. Today we've got a fantastic guest joining us today. He was actually nominated, was a finalist for the 2020 Georgia CIO of the Year Award. He's working for a company that was ranked 45th on Forbes' list of private companies. So we are really, really happy to welcome to the show today is Greg Allarding from Mansfield Energy. Greg, how you doing?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Glad to have you on the show today. So hey,
Yeah.
nominated for the 2020 CIO of the Year. That's a nice little honor.
Look, it was a great honor, humbling for sure. First time up, wasn't expecting to make the finalist list, but we're doing some great work here at Mansfield, and I guess that showed in the process.
No, that's terrific. And we've chatted a little bit before. I know Mansfield, you guys have been focused on really an industry where it hasn't necessarily always been super technology forward, right? So very manual processes and in several components of the business. And I know you've put in a lot of efforts at kind of identifying that and looking for ways to address that as you guys kind of move into the future. Talk a little bit about that, what that journey's been like and what your approach has been there.
Yeah, the fuel supply chain industry is pretty complex, really. Nobody thinks about how their fuel gets into their tank or into their engine. We deal with a lot of vendor partners. We've got a lot of customers, and stitching all those transactions together is a lot of work. In the past, we've manually touched every single one of those transactions, from the procurement of the fuel to the delivery to the invoicing of the customer. And as you think about scaling the business, touching every single transaction just really doesn't work. So for the last few years, we've been working on, this journey to get to touchless transactions. So our workforce is really just managing exceptions and not managing the norm.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, we all want to talk about growing our business and scaling our business and doing digital transformation. All that stuff sounds really good from a high level, but in the middle of that is just there's people involved, right? So the idea of change management can sometimes be one of the most difficult aspects of this. Obviously you got nominated for the CIO of the Year. You guys are doing some great things. I'm curious to kind of pick your brain about what your approach has been like from a change management standpoint and how you guys address that with the company.
Sure. Yeah. And for us, it's change management for our employees and our workforce, but it's also change management for some of our vendor partners. When I got here, it's going on 5 years now, we were in the midst of a program to replace our order management system. And my observation was that was an IT project, IT led, IT driven, IT managed. What I said was, look, we can't do this without the business. So if we're going to move forward, we've got to seed that project team with business subject matter experts. So I was able to convince the leadership team to take some of their key people out of the business, out of their day-to-day job, and put them on the project team, both to help, drive the vision and the solution. But then also those folks become the champions within the organization when we go to deploy this thing, and getting our employees and our vendor partners to adopt the technology that we were putting in. If we had continued down that path, I think when we went live, we would have been met with quite a bit of resistance from the folks because they hadn't been involved in the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I love the word champions on there that you talk about, right? So in a lot of cases, I know companies will approach a change of, there's one person at the top that's kind of shouting down to the group of, hey, this is going to be good for you. Let's all do it and, change the way you're doing things. And sometimes that's met with mixed success. But it sounds like that especially when you get down to that peer level, when folks look across and they see another leader in their division or their department that's really on board and has embraced, this idea of this new change and this new process, it has a big impact that way, right? People tend to jump on board more, or at least they're more curious to, oh, maybe this really is good for us, kind of thing. Is that kind of what you guys have found?
Well, it is, and I think people get more comfortable when they know that one of their peers is representing them on the project, and they have a voice through that individual. So it's no longer something that has been, kind of bestowed upon them by the IT organization or even by the leadership team. It's something that they've been involved in and a part of. And so, as a result, they feel like it's theirs.
So, there's so many different areas of tech right now that I think if you're a CIO of an organization, you kind of have this oversight into all these new areas of technology. It's not like it was 10 years ago. I think the job's changed dramatically from what it was 10 years ago, right? Where you're just kind of managing this pretty straightforward infrastructure. And now as we move into this area where there's AI available and machine learning and big data and all these cloud-based applications, it's very, very different. Yeah, I'm curious how you kind of look at that, how you prioritize where to invest your time and efforts. I mean, there's only so many hours in the day that you have. How do you kind of pick and choose where you guys are going to dive in and look at making those changes going forward?
Yeah, we're in the commodity business, and as a result, margins are pretty thin, and so everything we do from a technology standpoint has to come with an ROI, and I'm sure that's true for most companies. For us, we're investing right now pretty heavily in data architectures in support of analytics and AI. The more insights that we can get from the data, then the more efficient we can be internally. But conversely, the more value we can then add to our customers. We don't always necessarily strive to be the lowest cost competitor in the commodity space. That's hard to do, and oftentimes a race to zero. So what I want to do is be a value creator and a value provider to our customers. So we're looking at how do we use the data that we have to do that for our customers. And so in that case, we might not be the lowest cost, but we'll be the highest value. That's good for winning new business, but it's also good for retaining existing customers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So as we wrap up here, I know we've got time for one more question. I'd love to just get your kind of word of advice. If you're talking to another CIO or maybe somebody kind of moving up in their career in IT, what's one thing, a piece of advice or something you've been told in the past that you kind of live by now, or something you would pass on to somebody that's thinking about, how do I really build out my own methodology, my approach to leading an organization? Any advice you would give there?
Probably the best advice I had ever gotten, and it's advice that I pass along. In my earlier days, I thought, the latest and greatest technology was where I wanted to be. What's really most important, especially for aspiring CIOs these days, is to really understand the business and develop strong business relationships. Yes, stay current with technologies. Oftentimes, it's better for the folks on the team to help you do that, so that you're implementing kind of the technologies that are appropriate, but really understanding the business and what the business needs are, so that you can best help solve their needs through the use of technology, is more important than really knowing the latest technologies just for technology's sake.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think that's really sound advice. I think there's a lot of flashy stuff out there and really interesting things you can get in, especially guys that really love technology. You always want to kind of tinker with the newest and latest toy, but I think you're right. I think sticking to those business fundamentals and what's going to provide the biggest ROI back to the business is really the key thing, and it's going to move the needle and impact your business. So that's good advice. Well, Greg, so if people want to find out a little bit more about Mansfield Energy, or maybe connect with you, where's the best place for them to go to learn more?
Our website, mansfield.energy. I'm on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk. Always interested in learning what other folks are doing as well. So those conversations often are mutually beneficial.
That's terrific. Well, Greg, congratulations again on all your success over the past year. And there's big, bright things coming for Mansfield Energy in 2021, I'm sure. But thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate having you.
Jeff, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Hey, and thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to see more interviews like Greg's, you can go to auditmax.com and see our whole library of past interviews. You can also catch us where you find your favorite podcast. And we appreciate you and look forward to catching you next time.